Good evening, you're watching the news at 7:30 on ATV. I'm Belinda Lloyd.
And I'm Edna. Here are tonight's top stories.
CY Leung denies selling out after Philippine president claims they agreed to put Manila hostage tragedy behind them.
Education Minister and kindergartens roll out measures to prevent chaos as parents fight for school places.
This year's Nobel Peace Prize goes to international organization looking for chemical weapons in Syria. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying has denied selling out after Philippine President Benigno Aquino claimed to have reached an agreement with him to put the Manila hostage tragedy behind them.
Aquino's government today rejected Beijing's calls for a swift settlement, claiming it was too late as the matter had already been decided.
Addressing the concerns of survivors and victims' relatives, Leung insisted he has a plan to take action against Manila but wants to give diplomacy a chance. Survivors and relatives of those who died in the Manila bus siege 3 years ago were offered a glimmer of hope last night after it was revealed that Premier Li Keqiang discussed the issue with Philippine President Benigno Aquino on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit. Li called for a speedy resolution to the matter, noting that it had dragged on for much too long and piling the pressure on the Philippines to offer a formal apology and pay compensation to the victims. But hope gave way to disappointment and confusion this morning after an article in a major Filipino newspaper, the Manila Standard today, reported that Aquino had rejected Li's calls to resolve the matter. The paper quoted Aquino's spokesman as saying Li's appeal for a quick resolution had come too late, as Hong Kong and the Philippines had already agreed to put the issue behind them. The supposed truce was reportedly decided during Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's meeting with the Philippine president 4 days ago on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Bali. While Aquino flatly refused to apologize, Leung came home with positive news, saying the Philippines had agreed to official talks with Hong Kong on settling outstanding issues, but no time frame was given for discussions. Facing concerns that Leung may have sold out, the Chief Executive's office issued a statement this afternoon indicating that the matter is far from over. It reiterated that Leung immediately and clearly expressed his disagreement with Aquino's argument that the incident had already been resolved from the Philippines' perspective. The statement went on to stress that Leung had warned Hong Kong's relationship with the Philippines would continue to be affected if the matter was not properly resolved, but it failed to clarify whether Leung had in fact agreed with Aquino to put it behind them. The director of the Chief Executive's office, Edward Yao, also sidestepped the question on whether Leung had agreed to let the matter rest. But he told a radio program that if the Philippines wants to end this controversy, it will have to restart negotiations first. Then earlier this evening, the Chief Executive's office issued an amended statement dismissing Philippine media reports as out of context. It clarified that Leung had stressed the only way Hong Kong and the Philippines can put the matter behind them is through official bilateral talks and taking appropriate action. The government today sent an email to Aquino to set a date for bilateral discussions. In a related development, a Filipino senator has urged the Philippine president to show humility and apologize. JV Edricito estimated that the Philippines has lost around $12 million in revenue because Hong Kong tourists have been avoiding the country under a black travel warning, and he accused Aquino's administration of sacrificing tourist revenues in exchange for pride. Beijing again urged the Philippines to appropriately resolve the controversy. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying called on Manila to attach great importance to the issue, seriously handle it, and seek a reasonable and sensible solution as soon as possible.
A prominent victim's relative has accepted the Chief Executive's assurance that the matter is not over yet.
That's after a meeting with Leung Chun-ying, who was under pressure to come out with a proper explanation. Survivors and relatives of the victims in the Manila hostage tragedy were fuming this morning. Yik Siu-ling, whose lower jaw was shattered by a bullet, said she felt insulted by reports of the chief executive and the Philippine president agreeing to put the matter behind them. Equally upset and confused was Jie King, the brother of slain tour guide Masa Zhe.
I'm really shocked after I heard for his message, because over the past 3 years, we have tried our best and we have put many efforts to try to settle this tragedy behind. So I just don't understand why after the Philippine government, they didn't take any responsibility. So why we can put this behind? Yeah, I can't see any reason for why he said this.
Deng met the chief executive this afternoon, seeking to clarify exactly what was said between Leung and Aquino. Leung told him he had never agreed to put the matter behind him.
We are satisfied for today's result. Actually, not many promise, but he just promised that he will keep this issue and try his best to solve it as soon as possible.
Economic Synergy legislator and executive councillor Jeffrey Lam branded the report as inaccurate and incredulous. He stressed that the government has held more than 20 meetings with the Philippines over the past 3 years to seek justice. To other news, education authorities in kindergartens in Tai Po and North District have agreed on a series of measures to prevent chaos as parents fight for school places.
From now on, they will be restricted to reserving only one kindergarten seat at a time, and a deadline will be imposed to ensure compliance. ATV's Emily Sue reports.
Desperate parents forming long queues outside kindergartens. It's become a common sight in Tai Po and North District. That's because mainland parents with Hong Kong-born children are competing against locals who fear all school spaces will be snapped up by their cross-border rivals. After meeting with more than 60 kindergarten principals from Tai Po and North District this morning, Education Secretary Edna announced a series of measures to improve chaotic enrollment procedures. In the most controversial move, each child will now be restricted to seeking a place at only one school at a time. This means parents can still apply to as many schools as they like, but a 3-day registration deadline will be imposed in mid-December to prevent one student from reserving seats in multiple schools. Parents of successful applicants will be contacted before mid-December if their children are accepted. Parents will then have to register at one kindergarten or more during those 3 days to reserve their spot or spots temporarily. All schools will send information on students they've registered to the Education Bureau, which will identify students who have registered at multiple kindergartens. The schools can choose to communicate with the parents or revoke their acceptance altogether. Meanwhile, the Bureau will give each student one registration certificate, and parents will have to hand that in to the school they prefer the most in February as a final confirmation. Authorities will inform kindergartens to release spaces that haven't been confirmed by a certificate. If parents change their minds after handing in their certificate, they will have to take it back and give it to the new kindergarten of their choice before the new school year. In the past, parents have had to wait for 9 to 10 months before they knew if their child had been accepted, said Ng. Now that there's a unified deadline, parents can find out the enrollment results a lot sooner. Other measures include providing unlimited application forms for parents to pick up or download online, urging schools to enroll students who live nearby, increasing spaces by using empty classrooms, and setting up a hotline to assist parents looking for a kindergarten. Several members of the Democratic Party protested outside the meeting venue this morning, accusing the education minister of mishandling the issue and demanding his resignation. Emily Sue, ATV News.
Turning overseas, the experts in charge of dismantling Syria's chemical weapons stockpile have been awarded this year's Nobel Peace Prize.
The Nobel Committee said the work of the little-known Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons might inspire other countries to destroy their banned arsenals.
The Nobel Committee came out earlier this evening to announce this year's Peace Prize winner, almost 1 hour after the result was revealed in a rare leak to the Norwegian media.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided that the Nobel Peace Prize for 2013 is to be awarded to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, for its extensive work for eliminating chemical weapons.
The little-known intergovernmental organization was thrust into the spotlight last month when it was sent to Syria to investigate a nerve gas attack in a Damascus suburb. Based in The Hague, the organization was called in after Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who was blamed by the West for the attack, agreed to give up his banned arsenal as part of a deal brokered by the US and Russia. The OPCW's deployment is credited with averting an attack on Syria by fellow Nobel Peace Prize winner US President Barack Obama. The Nobel Committee said the award was a reminder to nations with massive stockpiles of banned weapons such as the US and Russia to get rid of them, especially when they were demanding Syria surrender its weapons. The OPCW only has about 500 staff and an annual budget of under $100 million. The announcement is a surprise as the favorite to win was Pakistani teenager Malala Yousafzai, a campaigner for women's rights who was shot in the head by the Taliban. US whistleblowers Edward Snowden and Bradley Manning were also hot favorites.
US lawmakers appear to have made progress in negotiations aimed at raising President Barack Obama's spending limit to avoid a debt default.
But it would only be a temporary measure, and the world's top bankers are warning of turmoil in global markets.
Homeless people rely on this food bank in Florida when they need a square meal. But the owners say they're running low on supplies because of the federal government shutdown.
There's a lot of uncertainty past November of where we're going to be able to get our food, if we're going to be able to get any government food at all.
It's just one of 202 food banks affected by bickering between Republicans and Democrats over the budget. But a more pressing issue now is raising the debt ceiling, which must be done before the 17th of October, or the U.S. will default on its debts. The Republicans have been asking for a delay to President Barack Obama's health care program in return for agreeing to his budget and demanding debt reduction measures to counterbalance raising his borrowing limit. But at their latest meeting, the Republicans offered him a short-term solution.
So what we want to do is to offer the president today the ability to move a temporary increase in the debt ceiling, in agreement to go to conference on the budget, for his willingness to sit down and discuss with us a way forward to reopen the government and to start to deal with America's pressing problems.
The deal would extend the debt ceiling deadline until the 22nd of November. Earlier, the Democrats said they would not negotiate until the Republicans agreed to the budget and ended the shutdown.
This is a situation where they do not know what they want. I hope the Republicans decide what they want, and we'll be happy to work with them in any way.
Republicans were pretty clear earlier today. They want to negotiate before you reopen the government. Is that
not going to happen?
Even though nothing has been agreed on, markets rallied overnight, with the Dow Jones jumping 2% and the S&P 500 posting its largest daily gain since the beginning of the year.
Markets are rallying very strongly just on the fact that there seems to be a way to address the debt ceiling and at least nudge the can down the road, if not kick the can down the road, because it's only 6 weeks.
The deadlock comes as finance ministers and central bankers from around the world gather in Washington for annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Both bodies warned of the consequences of a U.S. default and said they were preparing for the worst.
We have to engage in a dialogue with our members to see how they can best prepare for that and anticipate. That's a work that is underway. I hope, in a few weeks' time, we will look back and say, what a waste of time that was, because it was unnecessary, because it didn't happen.
So what we know is that even a near miss will have a real impact on developing countries. And so we are watching carefully, and we just urge all policymakers to move quickly to come to some resolution, because the impacts are going to be severe.
European Central Bank President Mario Draghi warned that even a prolonged standoff over the debt could hurt the global economy. Emily Sue, ATV News.
And still to come on ATV's main news tonight, robbers take off with $10 million worth of jewellery from store in Sim Sa Choi.
Health Minister orders canteen staff testing at 2 public hospitals after workers catch cholera.
Soccer fever. Amazing October. Inverness CT versus Partick Thistle. Partick Thistle versus Celtic. Watch the live show on your phone and ATV website. At this ultimate sports destination, the largest rural game will be played soon. The massive ground is prepared. Participants are practicing at full steam. Speed, passion, danger. Get ready to enjoy the excitement. Documentary World, Kilo Raipur, Destination Sports, tonight at 9. Reports directly from the heart of Europe. Every week, business insiders and analysts keep you at the forefront of current economic developments. Check in current news, made in Germany, every Saturday night at 8. Relying on junk. Is it possible to convert an abandoned factory base into a comfortable and high-end loft? 7 people take on the challenge. They have to find junk, figure out how to build it, and learn to cooperate. Is it a mission impossible? Documentary World, Junk Raiders, Sunday night at 9. Report from the heart of Berlin. Take a closer look at the development in one of the most powerful countries in Europe. How much do you know about Germany? Check in current news, people and politics, tonight at 8.
佢哋好多時吸食過量毒品，以致急性中毒，變得極度焦慮、極度不安，出現幻聽幻覺、妄想，覺得被人迫害。
毒品劑量越高，吸食越頻密，個膀胱會越縮越細，縮到等於酒樓茶杯半個咁大。
再嚴重啲，可能會腎衰竭死，一係就要切咗個膀胱。
Help drug abusers quit drugs early. The Rescue Drug Testing Scheme needs your opinion.
Police are investigating 2 robberies in Tsim Sha Tsui this morning. One was foiled by staff at an electronics store.
The other robbery saw 2 men escape with more than $10 million worth of jewellery from a store. ATV's Belinda reports.
The 2 men stormed into this jewellery shop on Hanoi Road in Tsim Sha Tsui at around 11:30 this morning. They threw flammable liquid at shop staff and threatened them with a gun before making off with around $10 million worth of jewellery. Police have not ruled out the possibility of an inside job.
According to our investigations, they directly approach the shops and then they can rob the stolen property within short minutes of time, and then they can also escape through the route. We think they may have been quite familiar with this area.
The 6 employees didn't suffer any injuries and no customers were in the shop at the time. At around the same time in Tsim Sha Tsui this morning, a man was arrested on Granville Road for attempted robbery. The 23-year-old suspect is accused of barging into an electronics store wearing a wig, sunglasses and a mask just as it was opening for business. He brandished a fake gun and used plastic handcuffs to restrain staff. One employee managed to sound the store alarm when he was ordered to open the shop till and hand over the cash. When the would-be robber tried to flee, some of the staff managed to break free and stop him. Belinda, ATV News.
Health authorities are testing canteen staff at 2 public hospitals after a mother and son who worked there fell ill with cholera.
Health Minister Koh Eng-man suspects the source of the infection is seafood from a wet market in Chuen Wan.
A 54-year-old woman who worked at the Queen Mary Hospital canteen was confirmed on Wednesday as the first cholera case in Hong Kong this year. Her 32-year-old son, who works at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital canteen, also has the disease. Both patients came down with vomiting and diarrhea after eating seafood bought from a wet market in Chuen Wan last week. Health Secretary Koh Eng-man suspects the seafood was to blame.
In this particular instance, the 2 patients may have a common source, having taken some of the seafood bought from the market. Therefore, we are now investigating along this particular direction. specimens have been taken from the markets concerned.
The health minister is very concerned and has ordered a thorough cleanup at the patients' workplaces.
As a precautionary measure, we have also conducted sterilization and disinfection for the 2 canteens, which these 2 patients are working in. And the workers in these 2 canteens would also be tested.
There were 2 imported cholera cases last year, and 1 imported and 1 local case in 2011. In a separate development, Co said more than 1,000 patients have undergone tests for a drug-resistant bacteria at Queen Elizabeth Hospital after an unusually high number of infections this year. The new vancomycin-resistant enterococcus, or VRE, is a bacteria that is resistant to vancomycin, a strong antibiotic. Co said tests showed 1,000 patients do not have the bug, while 37 tested positive. The screening process is still underway.
The head of the Urban Renewal Authority says more than $20 billion is needed for redevelopment projects over the next 5 years.
And the URA is still locked in a dispute with tenants who have to move out of a rundown but valued neighbourhood in Sheung Wan. Bo Leung has more.
Tenants of Graham Street in Sheung Wan are not going down without a fight against redevelopment plans, forcing them out of their homes. The Urban Renewal Authority launched the project in 2007 to redevelop Peel Street and Graham Street, which includes the city's oldest market. But some shop owners at the market complained about inadequate compensation and temporary accommodation arrangements. They collected signatures this afternoon in a bid to delay the move, accusing the URA of giving them no choice and forcing them to leave by the end of the year. After a radio programme this morning, URA Chairman Victor So said he will meet with the tenants next Tuesday to hammer out an agreement on their living and earning conditions. So acknowledged that people rely on neighbourhood shops they run to make a living, but insisted that redevelopment is unavoidable. He revealed that the URA will need more than $20 billion for renewal projects over the next 5 years. It comes after newspaper reports revealed the URA made a net profit of $4.4 billion in the last fiscal year. So pointed out there have been profits as well as losses over the past 8 to 10 years. The URA could lose more money from demand-led projects and has to be careful with its finances, he warned. So also noted that the authority received around 50 applications from flat and business owners at 41 to 51 Kai Ming Street in To Kwa Wan for their neighbourhood to be redeveloped. In August, the Buildings Department issued a closure order on 51 Kai Ming Street because the flat's balconies were structurally unsafe and had to be removed. But residents want the entire neighbourhood to be redeveloped as a whole because most buildings there are more than 50 years old. So said if the demand-led project is approved, it will go through a consultation process next year. Bo Leung, ATV News.
Time now for sports with Britain Clennet.
And Spain's World Cup qualifier will go ahead, Britt.
Yes, that's despite problems at the venue. 2 people were seriously injured in an explosion at the stadium, which will host the side's crucial World Cup qualifying match against Belarus.
The blast was at Son Moix Stadium in Mallorca, where Spain host Belarus for their World Cup qualifier tonight. 2 workers were seriously burned. One of them needed to be flown from the island to a hospital in Barcelona. It's believed the blast was caused by a faulty generator in the stadium car park, as power was cut off as well. Spanish football officials were considering changing the venue, but now say there is no danger and electricity has been restored. With tonight's clash going ahead as planned, Group I leaders Spain and bottom team Belarus trained at the venue in front of 8,000 fans. There's plenty at stake for the local side, as they will secure their ticket to next year's finals in Brazil if they beat the Belarusians. Meanwhile, FIFA Secretary-General Jerome Valk is in Brazil and touring the World Cup venues. Speaking in Rio, Valk said he was confident the country could handle anti-government protests, which are threatening to overshadow the showpiece event, just as mass rallies marred the Confederations Cup earlier this year.
It's an issue for and with the government, so there was no additional request from FIFA, and I think that what has happened at the Confederations Cup and the way the authorities reacted were definitely very good and gave a lot of confidence to all teams, commercial partners, and all of us on the capacity to control such situation.
Demonstrators are angry that vast sums of public funds are being spent on sporting events instead of social services.
To golf, the new PGA Tour season has teed off in California, with Jeff Overton leading the Fryes.com Open.
On a sunny day in San Martin, California, Jeff Overton surged into the lead of the season-opening PGA tournament. The 30-year-old American recorded 5 birdies and an eagle on his way to a 7-under par 64.
Which gave him that closing birdie.
Fellow American Brian Harmon finished 1 stroke behind, capping the day off nicely with back-to-back birdies from close range.
And he didn't call me Mr. Jacob.
25-year-old Carl Stanley, also American, carded a 66 to sit alone in 3rd place.
Trying to get Mike's confidence back. I'll tell you what.
Stanley is 1 clear of the chasing pack, which includes South Korean Charlie Wee and American Michael Putnam. Defending champion Jonas Blixt carded a 69. The Swede clinched his maiden PGA Tour victory by 1 shot at last year's tournament.
110th on the FedEx Cup list.
Japan's Hideki Matsuyama, who made his President's Cup debut for the Internationals last week, fired a 70.
Well, congratulations.
It's the first time in nearly a century that the PGA Tour has kicked off in October instead of January. The new season will also include extra events in Asia.
A look at the weather before we go. It was mainly fine across the city today. Temperatures varied from 25.5 to 31.1 degrees, while the relative humidity was between 65 and 89%. Winds were moderate, coming in from the northeast. Let's check on the ultraviolet reading. The maximum recorded for the day was 7. Tomorrow's UV index will be around 8. Now a look at the weather in the region. A little earlier, Typhoon Nari was about 240 kilometres east-northeast of Manila. It's expected to move west towards Luzon. Now to the satellite images. Bands of cloud associated with Nari are covering the northern part of the Philippines and bringing unsettled weather to the area. Here's what we can expect over the next few days. 1 or 2 rain patches tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 25 and 31 degrees. Sunny intervals on Sunday, turning cloudy with rain patches early next week. Now for tomorrow's air pollution levels. General stations will be medium to very high at 40 to 110. Roadside levels will be high to very high at 70 to 110. Finally, here's the weather in other cities around the world.
That's our main news for Friday night. We'll have an update in 1 hour. I'm Edna.
I'm Britton Clennett.
And I'm Belinda Lloyd. Thanks for watching ATV and have a great weekend. Good night.
Good night.
Coming up, check in current news, people and politics. At this ultimate sports destination, the largest rural game will be played soon. The massive ground is prepared. Participants are practicing at full steam. Speed, passion, danger. Get ready to enjoy the excitement. Documentary World, Kila Raipur, Destination Sports, tonight at 9. To inherit the ancestral art, Kabuki. The 17-year-old boy never stops practicing. The responsibility falls on his shoulders, but nothing can shatter his faith. All about documentary, living cultures, tonight at 10. This Saturday, Get extra amusement from our fabulous Korean Hour. Korea Agro Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation Special. Korean Hour. You are my destiny. Saturday afternoon starting at 5:30. What health is all about. They say it can be anything that improves the quality of life. Every week, the specialists will come on the show to give you tips on beauty and health. They will keep it simple, keep it real, and keep you in good shape.